Broadband, I said broadcast. Broadband, we have been having extensive discussions about all forms of communication today, and it's been a fantastic time. And we've been waiting for you to join us because we saw you 5 weeks ago, and that was a great time. And now we're all back together again. Now we do have Mr. Rue joining on video conference at some stage. But my sense is that we can commence questioning because we have senior officials here from the NBN. We have your opening statement, which has been circulated, so we thank you for that. And we're going to go straight to Senator Urquhart for questions.
Thank you. My first question was going to be to Mr. Rue, but he's not there yet, so I'll throw it open, and I'm sure there'll be someone who can grab hold of it. So. I guess we expect our questioning today to be short, so I want to rip through them as quickly as I can. Can you please run me through the elements of NBN Co's preparations for the caretaker period? Who wants to handle that one?
Senator, I believe Mr. Rue is best placed to answer that question. Would you mind holding that?
Okay, I can come back to that. Will NBN Co be undertaking any television or radio advertising during the caretaker period?
Perhaps if we wait for
Mr. Rue?
Yep, sorry.
Okay, let me just have a look. Okay, so can you tell me how many government relations and community relations staff does NBN Co have?
I certainly can't tell you off the top of my head, and Mr. Rue would be able to bring that to life more for you about that department.
I can take the so Senator. So our community relations teams sit in two teams within NBN. One is NBN Local, which covers regional parts of the country, and the other is NBN Metro. Now my team covers the NBN Local, and from the top of my head, our community engagement team within that, which includes people that operate, they run NBN Local operations. The number's about 60. Now in the Metro...
Okay, so 60 community relations staff, but just in your area?
Yeah, Metro it's about 15.
15 just in the community relations?
Yeah.
In the regional areas?
No, it's about 60 in the regional areas, which includes community engagement professionals, community ambassadors, business leads.
Okay, I'm really interested in the government relations and community relations staff, so not ambassadors and, okay. Let me just see where I can maybe come back to with Mr. Rue. I think I'm going to have to perhaps ask for a lot of these for Mr. Rue when he joins us.
You can bring them back on Tuesday if you need them.
No.
We have another round of estimates on Tuesday.
No, Mr. Rue is joining us, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes.
Is he just going to dial in, or
just
do we know?
Just got to get the NBN working and we can dial in. Just got a couple of...
We're just having trouble...
Got a couple of creases to iron out and get him in.
I probably really need Mr. Rue here for most of these.
Do you want to go to that tea break? Not really.
Yeah, so I don't know whether we need to suspend for 5 minutes or whether Australia Post's here or... I don't know.
We can do a straight post via video conference while we wait for Mr. Rue.
They're not ready.
They're not ready?
Okay.
Can we do the e-safety?
They're not ready either.
Okay. Well,
Do we have any idea how long Mr. Rue will be? Does anybody know that?
I'll just check.
Okay, thank you.
We've got the guy on the bike getting the NBN going.
Yeah, that's right.
The little man.
All that copper.
Yeah.
It's a problem. If it had been
It's
fibre...
It's a mix of different
If
things.
it was fibre, we'd have had him ready at 8 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, you've got a diversified strategy, much better risk management.
Sorry, do we have...
apologies,
That's
he'll
okay.
be online by 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, Mr. Rue recently had a major surgery with a hip replacement.
Yeah,
so
no,
he's
that's
not
fine.
travelling.
We don't need to know.
But he said
anything
8 o'clock,
with
so just a few minutes.
Okay, that's fine. So, Chair, could we just suspend and get a cup of tea?
If you want to have, we could have the tea tea break now.
Why don't we have
and
a
then we
tea
can just fire through,
Yeah.
and that gives Hansard a break. So we
Yep.
will have
I'm
a
happy
10-minute
with
break now. Yeah,
Yep.
let's see you. We come back
Yep.
at 8:10.
That sounds good.
Then we'll fire
Thank
through.
you.
Thank you. All the best. Well, you sure? I don't want to put you out. I'm concerned that you get the bad end of the stick here. You right? You sure? You don't have to say yes.
Can you just check Mr. Rue can hear you?
Right. Mr. Roo, can you hear us? Well, you're on mute. It's a bad start for you. Things are going to get better.
How's that, Senator?
That's good. Nice to hear your
Okay.
voice.
Can I thank you for allowing me to stay at home tonight? I've been in hospital recently. I'm just out, so
That's
I'm not.
we always.
I'm not really able to travel. So thank you
No.
for allowing me to stay at home. Much appreciated.
No, you will always put the health of people first.
Well,
Of course.
you might have noticed me. You might have noticed me limping last session. I'm no longer limping, but I'm.
Well, I can't say I took a detailed study of your gait. But,
I'm disappointed.
glad that you're
I'm
well.
disappointed, Chair.
Glad-
No,
glad
I'm
that-
good. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to resume and welcome you, Mr. Roo, as the Chief Executive Officer of the National Broadband Network, and we have questions from Senator Urquhart.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Roo.
Thank you. Good evening, Senator Urquhart.
Okay, so I'll go back to where I started at the beginning. So can you run me through the elements of NBN Co's preparations for the caretaker period?
Yeah, sure. So we actually started in, I'm going to say September last year, Senator, with a education session for our staff. As you can appreciate, most of our staff come from the private sector, so we need to make sure that they're aware of caretaker conventions. So we had sessions with our staff just to understand what sort of things like timing of product launches, any marketing campaigns that they may be doing during the period that could potentially be during an election campaign. We have set up a caretaker review group, and we have a process in place for managing the company through the caretaker period. This is actually a board-approved process. I took the process to the board in February, Senator, to ensure it was signed off by the board. So basically, the caretaker review group it's chaired by our executive general manager of government relations. We have members from the finance team, from the legal team, and from government relations on that team. And really what they do is monitor the activities of the company during the caretaker period.
Great.
So what we look at, Senator, is things like product launches. You asked me, for example, last hearing, I think it was you, Senator Urquhart, asked me about when would we be launching the FTTC to FTTP upgrade program for customers to purchase higher speed tiers on FTTC. I said to you we hadn't decided that because during caretaker we've actually pushed that out beyond presumably when election period will be to the end of May. For example, I have pulled out of a speaking arrangements I had on the 3rd of May. So it's those type of things, Senator. And,
okay, so Mr. Roo, I'll just run through some specific questions around some things,
sure.
but thank you for that.
No problem.
So will NBN Co be undertaking any television or radio advertising during the caretaker period?
No, we have pulled out of all of those
Okay.
arrangements.
Will NBN Co be undertaking any mail advertising during the campaign period?
No, Senator, we won't.
Can you tell me how many government relations and community relations staff NBN Co have?
Not off the top of my head. Gavin may be able to help with community relations.
Senator, I missed the mark on my definition last time, but during the break I just confirmed.
Gavin's brushed up during the break, so he's all over the information.
Just to be clear on the functions, we're talking about the functions of crewing the MP inbox to deal with constituent issues, liaising with shareholder departments on compliance, such things as Section 91s, and liaising with shareholder ministers in their office. I mean, basically these functions operating like the solar plexus, linking the shareholder community with the rest of NBN. That team, that broad team, numbers 20.
20, okay.
And community relations, Gavin?
Yeah, so we covered that in the previous session around
Yep,
the
we did
numbers
get
in the
that.
NBN
Yep.
local.
So that was about 60.
Yep.
Yeah. Mr. Roo, can you tell me, you went through, you've got a caretaker review, you had some training last September. Can you tell me what instructions have been given to those teams in terms of the conduct in their capacity as NBN co-employees during the election campaign?
They have been, they've been made aware of the caretaker conventions.
Yeah.
They have been instructed, if there's any doubt at all in their minds, to consult the caretaker review committee. I actually addressed our senior leadership last Wednesday, whenever that, what's today? Is that yesterday? It's yesterday.
It was yesterday.
I addressed them around the caretaker conventions and reminded them around the convention, and also we put on screen actually the email address of this caretaker review group. Now, obviously, this caretaker review group may need on occasions to seek advice, in which case it would start with Department of Communications, and if necessary, obviously, it would go to the Prime Minister, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. But I don't expect any of those issues, Senator. I mean, clearly, the vast majority of what we do is run a business. We need to, we build, we connect. If there's floods, you know, we deal with that. If there's assurance, we deal with that. So the vast majority of what we do, Senator, I think is run of the mill that wouldn't be caught up with these. But to the extent that there is anything we're aware of coming up, we have ceased those arrangements or ensured that they're consistent with caretaker. And if anything new comes up, our team are well armed to make sure they seek advice and get advice.
So, Mr. Roo, will your staff in their capacity as NBN co-employees be providing any event assistance to government ministers, members or candidates during the campaign?
Nothing has been asked, Senator, and that would be something we would, you know, top of my head, seek advice on. But there's nothing that we have been asked to do, Senator. It's not. You know, we need to be very careful during the caretaker period as is right.
Cool.
Will your staff in their capacity as NBN co-employees be appearing at any community events, including government ministers, members or candidates during the campaign?
No.
Will your staff be undertaking any community information activities during the caretaker period?
Perhaps, but let me give you an example. If there was floods, for example, I mean, I'm sure our people would be giving advice to, you know, people in northern New South Wales if they're still flooded at that period. You know, those sort of advice in terms of connections to their broadband, or, you know, if it's a normal activity, I would have thought yes. If it's an activity to market NBN, no, that would fall under the previous question you asked me, Senator.
Okay. How will NBN Co handle any requests for assistance or resources from the government during the campaign?
We liaise with Department of Communications. We would always talk with them. I mean, clearly, if we're asked for factual information, we would seek counsel from shareholder departments, and then if requested, as we're required to actually under the Act, we will provide information to the shareholder departments.
Yeah. Who in the company is accountable for ensuring caretaker conventions are adhered both in letter and spirit? I guess where does the buck stop, Mr. Roo?
Well, I think the buck always stops with me, Senator, but we would have our executive manager, who's Felicity Ross, who's in charge of government relations and media, will be the direct manager of the person in charge of the caretaker review committee. But clearly, obviously, everything ends up in my lap ultimately, I guess.
So you've given the training sessions and the briefings that you had. Have they been provided for your government relations team, or have they been broader?
No, they've been provided by the government relations team to the broader company. The government relations team are clearly understand the conventions. That's kind of their job. But at the broader NBN, you know, employees are clearly all from almost entirely from the private sector. So this is all kind of new to them, and and therefore we need to make sure that we gathered the information and told them what was needed.
Okay, so in September 2020, Minister Fletcher announced, after expending over $50 billion, that he was going to backflip from copper to fibre. It was announced that 2 million copper households would be overbilled with a parallel fibre access network. Can you tell me how many premises of part of that are actually connected with fibre as of today?
Yeah, I might ask Brad,
Yep.
Senator in the room.
Thank you.
So we have launched the FTTN to FTTP program that got launched earlier last week. We've got about 53,000 eligible prems within the initial footprint that was launched. I think we sit around 350 actual orders have been placed. I think we had about 100 go through our business readiness testing and therefore all the way through the cycle. For the 250 that we've got since the commercial launch, I think next week will be when we start connecting those customers.
Right, so none have actually been connected as of today, but you've got 350 orders placed out of 53,000.
Within that initial footprint, I think that's right. The 250 from the commercial launch and 100 from the business readiness test.
Yeah. So of the 2 million premises, suburbs have only been announced for 1.6 million premises. Will the remaining 400,000 premises be announced before the election?
I think, Senator, that all of them will not be announced. There is potentially an opportunity to announce a few more. It depends when the election is, Senator. We've basically got ready some more to announce, but not the 400,000.
Okay, so how many will be announced before the election?
Probably about 100,000, I would suggest.
And how many, have the locations of the remaining 400,000 premises been provided to the government?
No, I don't believe so.
None at all?
Believe so.
No.
In fact, they haven't all been, Catherine might help here, but they haven't all been selected yet.
Sorry?
I don't believe all the areas have been determined at this stage, because Catherine, do you want to help with this?
Sure. So for the remaining part of the footprint for the NTP program, we are still finalising details around adjacent suburbs, etc., looking for network and build synergies.
Right.
So we are still working on settling the final footprint.
Okay, so is it fair then to say that you haven't advised the government of any of the locations, or
Not to my knowledge.
There's around about 100,000 of 400,000.
Okay, so about 100,000.
But the other 300,000, approximately, these are to the nearest 100,000. The other 300,000 we have not yet completed.
Yeah.
All the stuff that Catherine talked to.
Okay.
Do you have one other senator who wants to ask a question? So
Okay, I will. I'll happy to hand over now because I'm just going into a different area.
Senator Davey?
Yeah, I've just got a quick question. The government in the last week or so has announced 450 million contribution towards fixed wireless network upgrades. Can you explain that to me and explain why it's needed at this time and how many households will benefit?
Gavin, do you want to talk to that, please?
Thanks, Stephen. Senator, so we've seen a significant shift in the appetite for comms in the bush. I think it's well documented, the flight to regional Australia and the context around staying connected with job opportunities, digital health, e-learning, all manner of online activities. So we really responding to both feedback and anticipation of the demands required, the new demands required by our customers in regional Australia. We looked at our fixed wireless and satellite services and identified what sort of potential options there were for appropriate investment to lift the level of service that we can offer. So in a nutshell, that footprint, round numbers, covers a million homes and businesses covered. And let's say round numbers, 600,000 being fixed wireless and 400,000 in the satellite footprint. We're going to lift the busy hour experience across our fixed wireless customer base to a minimum busy hour floor around 50 megabits per second. Introduce a higher speed tier of home fast 100 megabits per second, and in 85% of that footprint a NBN fixed wireless super fast speed of 250 megabits per second. So that's more speed. We're also basically using every technology trick in the book to push that technology, including a geographic expansion to cover, basically to expand its geographic coverage by about 50%. So from about 200,000 square kilometres to more like 300,000 square kilometres. And that will take about 120,000 homes and businesses that are currently mapped to the satellite service into fixed wireless. So we're taking demand out of the satellite network. By doing that, we're able to lift the experience of those satellite customers, including a significant uplift in a doubling of our allowance for Sky Muster customers by the time we finish this upgrade. And for our Sky Muster Plus customers, 16 hours of unmetered traffic a day. So importantly, at the times when kids are home needing to get on Zoom or businesses are operating through the day, they're able to go nuts with access to VPN, YouTube and whatever.
Good.
My kids don't need any extra hours. But I just want to put an example to you because it's come to me. Say in areas like in the Hunter, Colburn, it's a high tourist area, but it's very regional. I think parts of the region have fixed wireless. The rest of them are on Sky Muster. But the fixed wireless service, even where it is, because a lot of these areas are commercial, they're actually multi-dwelling sort of hospitality venues. But the complaint has been it gets overly congested and they get a sort of a single dwelling service, but they're a multi-dwelling. Will this upgrade help those in that scenario?
Well, importantly, any existing customer on an existing plan will have their capability uplifted. As I said, their floor speed will be lifted, but also introducing these new options of higher speeds. And important for business is not just download speeds, but upload speeds as well. So when you're dealing with cloud computing and such things. Under this upgrade plan, we'll be increasing our available upload speeds from 10 megabits to 20 megabits per second, so doubling that upload speed.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Chisholm.
Thanks.
You done? Yeah.
Good to see you, Mr. Ryu. I was interested in following up some questions from my colleague Senator Sheldon that he put on notice around the NBN Co was given a sample list of suburbs and asked whether it considered those suburbs to be metro or regional.
Yeah.
So to give one example, Butterham is classified as regional according to the NBN question on notice response. And I don't know if you know where Butterham is, but I certainly do, and I wouldn't consider it regional myself. The remote area index from the ABS does not classify it as regional. The significant urban area classification from the ABS also classifies Butterham as an urban area. I just wanted to get a sense of what basis the NBN code classifies Butterham as a regional area.
Yeah, Senator, actually Gavin in the room there has chapter and verse on how we do this. So Gavin, maybe you could answer Senator Chisholm's question, please.
Yeah, so I think there's different contexts of what you call regional for various purposes. I mean, the Regional Australia Institute defines regional Australia essentially as everywhere outside of mainland capitals in the ACT. And I think that's kind of a reasonably widely understood broad definition of what's regional. That's different to an ARIA definition or the ABS kind of definitions that look more so from it's really around urban density. So, for example, Townsville would be a major urban under a ABS characterisation or an ARIA characterisation. But in the context of, I'm really sorry, I've got pretty good geography, but I don't know where
It's on the Sunshine Coast.
Sunshine, on the
Yeah.
Central Coast.
Like Sunshine Coast.
Sunshine Coast.
So if you went to someone in Butterham and said,
Yeah.
you live in regional Australia, they'd think you're mad.
Well, the Regional Australia Institute defines regional Australia as really anywhere outside of the
And
capital.
I suspect they've never been to Butterham and said to someone in Butterham.
But that may be the case. So that's.
Well, I'm trying to, like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to get a sense of why
NBN code.
you guys classified it.
Well, that's really the basis. That kind of a common high-level understanding informed by in institutes such as the Regional Australia Institute, and then.
But why would you base it off them and not
Not the ABS.
ABS?
Yeah.
Well, I think that then you'd say, well, Townsville is. I'd posit that if you're in a pub in Townsville, talking about whether you think it's a regional centre or not, they would say they were a regional centre. But that is a major urban under that. So the definition.
We're going to get distracted if we start asking those.
Yeah, but the definition is around. It's
Yeah.
really around.
That's
It's based
right.
on population density more than, and it's got relevance in things like service provision. The health regionalisation and the ARIA definitions really. They are based on distances from service centres and those kind of things, which is that's different to.
So do you have a definition that you like? Are you saying you based it off what the regional?
Well, that's a kind of the common high level definition. I run a territory within NBN, which in some respects is a synthetic concept, but it defines. My business unit is called Regional Development and Engagement, and for what it's worth, we take an outside-in approach. And the way that we've defined my territory, we've excluded all capitals, not just mainland capitals, and what I call emerging second cities. So that does include the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Newcastle, Central Coast, Wollongong, Geelong. So in that context, I agree with you. But that's from the perspective of my territory. We do indeed when we look at territorial boundaries, we do use ABS SA3 boundaries. That inform our territory definition.
So I'll try and sort of move forward, and I'm just trying to get a bit of context. So Highton, as an example, which I think is in Geelong, is classified by the ABS Remoteness Area Index as in a major cities of Australia zone. It is also classified by the Significant Urban Area Index as a significant urban area. The NBN code has classified it as regional.
Well, I'll go back to my point. I mean, in ABS, Townsville is a significant urban area. So it's based on a significant urban area, as my understanding from the ABS, is any population centre with greater than 100,000. So irrespective of where it is geographically and its proximity to the capital city.
Okay. So the NBN code is using the Greater Capital City Statistical Area as a classification?
Well, I think the suburbs that we include in the NTP program, they're a matter of record. They're on the website, and in terms of how you communicate that in a metropolitan versus regional kind of context, I go back to the point. It follows a convention that sees regional Australia in that context being defined as anything outside of the major capitals.
I'll go into a bit of detail here, so just bear with me. So this is the definition from the ABS website. Greater capital city statistical areas are geographical areas built from statistical area level 4 and are designed to represent the functional extent of each of the 8 state and territory capital cities. They were designed to reflect labour markets using the 2011 census travel to work data. Because of this, the GCCSAs reflect the labour market of each capital city. The labour market is sometimes used as the de facto measure of the functional extent of a city as it contains the majority of the commuting population. This definition is designed to include the population within the urban area of the city, as well as people who regularly socialise, shop or work within the city and live in small towns and rural areas surrounding the city. It is important to note that GCCSAs do not define the built-up edge of the city. They provide a stable definition for those cities and are designed for the output of a range of social and economic survey data within each state and territory. The area not defined as being part of the greater capital city is represented by a rest of state region. So GCCSAs are named according to the cities they represent, for example, Greater Sydney. The remainder of the state and territory is named rest of, for example, rest of New South Wales. So by reading this, GCCSA does not give a technical classification for metro or regional. Rather, it says whether something is in Sydney or not. Do you understand that?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get a sense of if that's the basis on which the NBN is classifying regional areas.
No, I think I've explained the basis of which it's, in that context, which is, I mean, I think you need to ask the question too, under what context are you classifying something? Because we have a service delivery has a context of urban, major and minor, rural, remote, isolated, etc. But in the context that we're talking about, regional Australia is everything outside the
Capital city.
capital cities.
Yeah. Okay. I think
And frankly, I mean, the suburbs, they're, it's a matter of record on our website which suburbs are included. So, I mean, if the question's around a pub test on, is Wollongong regional or not, I have a view, but the simplistic definition that we've adopted, consistent with such groups as the RAI, is a simple one.
So that regional, metro versus regional distinction, does that exist within the GCCSA, or have you got a designation of that itself within the NBN?
So within the NBN, and I'd preface this by saying it's somewhat synthetic because it defines my territory as an executive with NBN and my patch versus what's not my patch. We define that as Australian capitals and emerging, everything outside of the capitals and emerging second cities. Ergo, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Newcastle, the Gong and Geelong are not in my patch. The boundaries we set up are consistent with ABS SA3 boundaries from 2016, but that defines really where me and my team put our focus with an outside-in orientation for the regional development task.
Okay, I'll try and give you a specific that might be helpful. So, the government response to the Regional Telecommunications Review says, and I quote, "These upgrades are forecast to benefit around 950,000 households and 455,000 businesses in regional Australia. This suggests that 1.4 million of the 2 million premises in the fibre to the node overbuild footprint are in the regions." Is that accurate?
I'd have to. I don't know if I don't have those precise numbers on the top of my head.
It's less than that, Senator Chisholm. Catherine, would you have a view?
No, Stephen, I would need to get further detail as well.
It wouldn't be 1.4 million, though, Gavin or Catherine.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Okay. Well, I suppose this is the problem, Mr. Rue. Like, I'm happy for you to take it on notice, but I don't really want you to stick to the timeframes that the good chair here set for responses to questions on notice. Is that something you could come back to me earlier on?
What we said was that we would have a fair proportion regional. You're talking about the 2 million homes, Senator, are you? Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. We look to have a reasonable proportion in regional Australia, but it would not be, I mean, you're 1.470%. It would be closer to 40%, I would have thought. But we can confirm that with you, Senator.
I think what's being, Mr. Rue, I think if you could answer it, as soon as possible, I think that's sort of the request that's coming through, rather than wait 6 weeks.
I can tell you that I think it's around 40%. I mean, Gavin, would that be right?
It sounds about right for the 1.6, yeah, and that's based on what's outside of the the capital.
Sorry, for the 1.6, not the 2, that's correct. Yeah, it's around 40%, Senator Chisholm.
Maybe
If you take that as directionally right,
Yeah, if you could confirm that in writing.
over the next day or so,
As soon
that
as
would be
possible, in the
helpful.
next few days would be ideal.
yeah, we can do that. That's no problem at all.
Might have to call you back on Tuesday, you never know your luck in the big city. Righto, you got any more?
I do.
Okay.
So 40% would mean about 800,000 premises.
Yeah, if that 40% is right, but take that as directionally right, but that's around that, I think.
Okay, so a fair bit less than the 1.4 million, I suppose, is the reality.
I'm not sure where the 1.4 you're getting, Senator. Sorry, I missed that because I'm sitting at home. But
Well, it's the upgrades are forecast. This is the government's response to the Regional Telecommunications Review. It says, and I quote, these upgrades are forecast to benefit around 950,000 households and 455,000 businesses in regional Australia. So we added those two numbers together to get 1.4, which I think is a pretty fair conclusion.
I can't comment on that, Senator. What I can tell you is that it's that the last, my memory on the last, and Gavin's right, not the 2 million, the 1.6, it's around about 40%. But let us confirm that with you in writing as soon as we can.
Okay. I just wanted to touch on the NBN special access undertaking. Where is that at in terms of the ACCC process to examine NBN pricing?
The ACCC will have a process, Senator, of having a meeting of its the team that look at this, and then they would publish our proposal on the website at a time of their choosing. And at that stage, Senator, then it would go to they will publish a discussion paper for commentary on, and then they would go through the normal review process, which will take between 6 and 12 months, 6 to 9 months. Sorry, not 12 months, 6 to 9 months.
And I just wanted to get a sense of the recent fixed wireless announcement. How does that interact with the SAU and regulatory accounting process?
Clearly there are costs to be incurred by NBN, which would be part of the costs that are taken into account as prudent and efficient, but equally there is revenue from, there's a grant, if you like, from the government for a portion of that, which would offset those costs. So effectively it's part of the normal process where they will review the revenues and the costs of the business and ensure that they satisfy themselves as the prudency and efficiency of the costs, and then that forms part of regulatory asset base, a part of incremental cost recovery account, and so on.
So, sorry, just to be clear, is the ACCC examining an element of that?
No, what I'm saying is, Senator, as they look at the ACCC has a role always in looking at NBN's costs. And clearly, any costs that we incur in upgrading the fixed wireless network is part of the normal procedures that the ACCC would go through to examine the prudency and efficiencies of costs. That's all. It's not the actual proposal itself. It's the cost that we would incur to ensure that that can be included appropriately in our regulatory asset base and our incremental cost recovery account.
Okay.
As part of regulatory accounting.
Okay. So, how, if at all, does the ACCC process on NBN pricing interact with caretaker conventions? Not on
Sorry,
this
can you repeat the question?
Well,
Sorry.
I'm just trying to get a sense of have you had any consideration of?
Oh, I see. No decision will be made in terms of acceptance or otherwise of pricing during caretaker period, Senator. This process, as I said, will proceed on for a period of 6 to 9 months beyond the election.
Okay. So just to be clear on this, will any major pricing decisions or decision about the regulatory framework that oversees pricing be made during the caretaker period of this election?
The answer is no, because the ACCC there's a normal pricing that we do, of course, as part of business as usual. But any changes to our pricing structures is something that will be determined in the first quarter of next fiscal year, rather than between now and the end of May.
Okay. What about, will any submission be made by the NBN Co as to pricing changes during the caretaker period?
I would expect that there will be a period of consultation that the ACCC will. There'll be a period of consultation that they will have during this period, Senator. That consultation period, I expect, will extend beyond the caretaker period. If it didn't, we would have to consider what we would do in those circumstances.
And do you have any protocols?
But there will be no decision made that would bind an incoming government during this period.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
All right.
And that's the most important thing.
All good? Okay. Thank you very much. Well, we thank the NBN very much.
Chair, sorry, Chair. One thing. Can I just clarify? I just was thinking.
Yep.
While we were talking about regional definition.
Yeah.
Senator Urquhart asked me a question which I answered. I was thinking of it in terms of marketing. Senator Urquhart asked me around would we be doing any mail or direct mail. Not for marketing, Senator Urquhart. There may be occasions that we need to mail around a disconnection notice or a medical alarm or a fire or lift. So that will be a direct mail. But I think you were asking me in terms of marketing.
Yeah, I was asking in terms of the caretaker convention, not within your normal business. Yeah.
I just wanted to be
very good.
I hope you're not going to disconnect anyone, Mr. Rue.
Very good to be accurate. And
I hope not too.
We thank you, Mr. Rue. We thank the NBN, and we wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in person to the other officials. We are now